What a week it has been. I apologise for so many things this time. I apologise for the lateness of the upload of this video. I apologise for the terrible writing of my notes. I apologise if there's any more interruptions, and I apologise if there's any noise coming out from the back. The council have been round and doing all kinds of things, and that kind of relates to why my notes are so poorly written today. The reason, or rather not today, but at the session, we had a power cut that had just completely rendered the entire street just out of electrics, basically. And in addition to that, I was of course wanting to play D&D and couldn't because of this power cut. I mean, I could really, but only for a very short time. And I think each of the players has sort of set her on a timer, and I'm like, look, no guys, it's fine, I can still play for the 3 hours that we want to play from 5 to 2 till 2 minutes past 5. So yeah, so we were able to get a really good session out of it, but we couldn't do anything too intensive really in case myself or well, yeah, just me really, in case I ended up cutting off. So I was going from Roll20 to Discord, or going from laptop to phone, going from looking at a map to theatre of the mind. So yeah, so really, and even then, this episode is one of those missable ones where not a whole lot happens, but it's of more benefit, I think, to the players who are there than to what's going to follow. Although it may actually save a lot of notes taking in the next session. I think this is quite a good one, really. So yeah, so we basically spent 3 hours with no combat and talking. I really should have said that earlier, so you could save yourself if you wanted to just save yourself watching this video and skipping to the next one if you so choose. So yeah, so I told the party that that Emil would have to be my seeing eye dwarf, or the party would have to be my seeing eye adventurers, because I may not be able to look at a screen. I tried using Roll20 on my phone, but it didn't work. So our player Emil did the session recap. I do apologise. That's what these are, recaps. Yeah, so he had mentioned that we tried to perform Operation Put to Sleep, which had failed miserably. Eliza carried the team, and Emil decided to commit a war crime, and I think that perfectly and adequately describes what happened in the previous session. Once more, I apologise for the interruptions. A package from my partner had arrived. So, yes, so I think that was a good summary all in all of what happened in the previous session. So now we're deciding of what we're going to do. I had suggested, because I had 2 weeks to think about this, what our next move should be. We were thinking of taking a long rest at the Stonehill Inn, and then maybe taking on the either the Sleeping Giant Inn or the Trezendar Manor. However, I had suggested that because Shoria Simmons is our warlock, she would benefit from having a short rest to get our spell slots back in case we encountered any resistance at the Sleeping Giant. Players could use their hit dice and we could heal up a bit. So we go along with the plan. Shoria decides to get. We have about an hour of resting. Shoria gets 5 on a hit die, which isn't too bad, and Eliza gets 6 on a hit die, again not too bad. And I think the other characters, I think Emil's using his lay on hands. I'm not sure, just to get a bit more hit points and use as a potion. But yeah, the players are generally fine with using their hit die so far, and then going into the Sleeping Giant Inn. And we also, my character decides to have a wash as well, so we all have a wash, and upon my return I apparently smell of roses. I am the most dashing dwarf in the inn, but well, there's not really many dwarves in Phandalin anymore, as my notes like to go on to say, and as well that dashing is not really a word that belongs in the same sentence as Garveld Grimhammer. So, Barthen is not Barthen. He's the trader. Toblin, as we approach the bar, sort of is wondering what happened to us to be all covered in blood. He's a bit concerned, but Emil says that the Redbrands had fallen on a pitchfork. I can't speak today. I apologise. on a pitchfork, and he had cholesterol problems. Fortunately, no deception roll was required, and Toblin said, well, yes, I guess I eat too much cheese, so yes, that was a bit of a giggle that we had. He basically just wants to report and get some drinks in, and we all do, pay for our rooms, and now Eliza is a bit concerned about her a gentleman suitor, a gentleman caller by the name of Merrick, who was a simple boy who was being used by the Redbrands earlier. So yes, he was being used by the Redbrands, and he's now back at the inn after being put to sleep, and still enamoured with Eliza despite all he's gone through. And yes, he's in the inn. Now where, we don't know, we can't see him. Eliza's trying to look around for him, and she doesn't see him. I think she had to roll for it, and I can't be sure if she had to or not. Yeah, no, there's no roll that I can see. Anyway, yes, she's not in view. Sorry, Merrick's not in view. So she goes up to Toblin and just asks, I'm just wondering how Merrick's doing. If he made it here safely, and if he's just being kept hidden away from any Redbrand callers. And she's trying her best not to attract his attention by saying his name. And our sadistic DM. I mean, I suppose he has to have these moments because he's so fair with us and so generous with us with how the dice have been treating us lately. He has to have this little moment where Toblin says, well, I don't know where he is, but yeah, of course I know where he is. I'll call him over. And like Eliza's like, no, don't call him over. And Toblin's like, Merrick, get your out here. There's a woman to see you. And Merrick's running out of the kitchen in a chef's hat and apron. And he's sort of going, yes, Toblin, how may I help? And he turns to see Eliza, and I think he's running at like 70 miles per hour. We're talking like boots of haste and time stop, and just sprinting over and over again in the same direction, and to eventually get to the counter. And he's sort of fawning over Eliza, and Eliza's like, yes, I just want to make sure that you're safe and everything's all right there. And the DM could tell that this was getting a little awkward, so Toblin then calls Merrick to go back into the kitchen and work, and he seems to be doing good work as well. He's working with all the vegetables, considering that he's the only one who's eating them. So that's his payment basically. He gets to eat for free-ish. So yeah, as well that now that we know that Merrick's fine, Shoria has the great idea to tell us that if he or any other people talk to the Redbrands, she shall cut off his winky. Given the Shoria's player's background, I didn't think that was the most... I was expecting a lot more harsh language than that, but still. So yes, I do feel quite confident that should things get worse with the Redbrands, God almighty. Should anything get worse with the Redbrands, that Shoria at least will be prepared to go to the full extent of the, I guess the law of the knife, really. So that's good to know. Now, this is something that Emil and I imagine that Emil and Shoria talked about out of character prior to the session. It was about Emil's crisis of faith, because hanging the body from the bell tower was something that he wouldn't really like a paladin in the service of Moradin wouldn't really be doing anything like that. So he's now starting to think that the adrenaline's rushing out of his system, or rather, not adrenaline out of his system as such, but perhaps it's becoming negative adrenaline. And then he's cleaning the blood off his holy symbol. He sat at the table, he's washing his armor, and he's cleaning the blood off his holy symbol at this table at the inn, and he's now visibly shaking, and Shoria takes the time to speak to him, and It takes the time to speak to myself and Emil, and I'm just there sort of watching this, cup in hand, just. This is not a matter of that I can really deal with. I deal with the dead and the dying and the undead. I'm not going to be any use in this conversation. So those two have their roleplay moment, and Emil talks about how he is ashamed of his behaviour, hanging that body from the belt up, saying that there was someone's son. And Sildar offers another perspective to play devil's advocate. He says that look, imagine what they would have done to the party members had you not done that. And Emil says, we'd already won. We'd already won the fight. There was no need to take this as far as we did. It's one thing to kill Redbrands, fine, but to then use such horrific shock tactics against not just them, but as well the people of the town. We've got to be better rulers than the de facto Redbrand rulership is now, or leadership is now. He goes on about his word. He goes on about words that he associates with his character, like honor, duty, faith, courage, valor. This has to mean something, and he gives a very powerful speech, holding up his symbol of Moradin from his neck. And Shoria then also as well provides her own perspective, now revealing to us her backstory, because I was the only character who had blurted out their backstory because I didn't know what the party wanted to know at the first session. So yeah, so Shoria explains that her patron has only spoken to her once, and that was at the beginning of her backstory, basically. Shoria had been raised and grown up in a brothel, and she's basically lived their entire life. She did not engage the patrons, shall we say, but there was someone who she worked with, not in the traditional sense of in a cat house. Basically, this gentleman that she was friends with went by the name of Stefan, and he was a bounty hunter. And Shoria would provide information for Stefan, and Stefan, as I guess payment for this information, would go out and hunt those guys, and in doing so, would also protect Shoria. Yeah, so they'd help one another. And this Stefan fellow, he was also a servant of Titania, who is one of the Archfey. I did some reading up on this. Not that my character's going to know anything about Shoria's patron. I wouldn't know anything about the Feywilds as such. But from what I understand, Titania was the Queen of the Fairies in Shakespeare's works. I believe that she has a role in D&D as well. I don't know if there is. I might put something up on screen there, if it's worth doing so. And there was one time where this is sort of where Shoria's, I guess, call to adventure began. Was when Stefan was being attacked by this group of 10 people, and Shoria had been hidden away, and Stefan had used his some sort of minor illusion spell to make a cupboard or a cellar, I didn't quite catch it, appear locked. And he held that illusion up until his dying breath, until these guys had walked away from his, body just bleeding out on the floor. So then it was Shoria's patron Titania who told her that this man was in my service. I grant his gifts unto you, so that you may avenge him and continue to be my agent. So Shoria, without any thought whatsoever, just agreed to it and just ran. She just ran and ran and ran, and she went through all of the different, she went through cities and villages and whatever, just to try and get by. But she could only say to so many innkeeps, look, I left my purse outside, I'll just go and get it. Or I've left my purse with a friend, or I left my purse at home, I'll just go home and get it. And she just, bolt out of there. and just move on to the next place. Anything to get a free meal. And I appreciate that kind of story. I regret not having quite as good an idea for a sort of warlock patron over, but yeah, vengeance is a fantastic motivator. So yeah, so Emil turns. Oh, sorry. Before I move on, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I do sort of look to Shoria, and like Garveld Grimhammer doesn't quite get warlocks. I mean, ignoring the fact that warlocks are kind of new, I think, in D&D. I think they were introduced in 4th or 3.5th edition. He doesn't really get warlocks. He doesn't really get wizards and sorcerers. Like he just understands. But when Shoria mentioned that she has a patron, and this patron's powers come from there, he understands that as her being a cleric of some kind. So he might be a bit more inquisitive or protective, or maybe perhaps would like to know more about her holy duties to Titania, because he doesn't know of this Titania, but he assumes that she's some sort of, you know, god from some different plane. I mean, he was contacted in the same way that Shoria was, that, you know, he was called 200 years ago by Kellenvor to carry out his duties, and he's done just that. So yeah, so spiritual matters still continuing. Emil returns to Garveld Grimhammer and wants to know what his advice is. And I just say that, look, our behaviour is very much looking like the workings of Abathor, the god I mentioned in the previous video, about him being the dwarven god of evil and greed, and exarch of Bane as well. So I guess like the sort of lawful evil sort of god of justice, you know. I think it's like poetic justice and of punishment. It's more the punishment side than the justice side. So that's my understanding anyway. Again, I haven't really read up on Bane all that much. So yeah, so I tell him that this is more the behaviour of Abathor, and that it may be him that receives Emil rather than Moradin at the end of his life. But that's hopefully later rather than sooner. So I'm sort of saying that, look, we'll deal with the Redbrands and we'll work on some good deeds. And if he's still going to be faithful to Moradin, I might ask that he uses funds to put that towards, you know, doing some sort of craft. So I'm actually looking at the map of Phandalin here, and I'm thinking maybe we could use the bricks of Tresender Manor to perhaps build up some walls, create some defences against the undead, and of course you can put your symbol of Moradin into them, or you can build some sort of temple or shrine to Moradin maybe, or help build the Shrine of Luck. So these are all things that I'm going to think on until this coming Saturday. I'm recording this on the 6th of October, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm a bit short on ideas. Eliza, I didn't manage to write it down, but I think Eliza says something along the lines of, like, just because you've done one bad deed, it doesn't overshadow all the good deeds you've done in the past, and indeed all the good deeds that you can do in the future. You know, you should try to do better. We should all try to do better. And out of the sadness that Emil appears to have constantly on his face, which I didn't really realise, he seems like a jovial character, he seems happy for once. So that was pleasing. So it seems as though we're all having a nice bit of a bonding experience, but I think we're going to get even more bonding experience out of more combat encounters where life and death matter. So yeah, but we'll have to see. We'll see what the DM's got in mind for us and how our backstories play into that. So we're getting ready to plan what we're going to do. We agree that we're going to have a short rest and then go to the Sleeping Giant Inn. And then once we've cleared that out, we're going to go to the Stone Hill Inn, have a long rest, and then go to the Tresendar Manor afterwards, being fully prepared. If the dice favour us, we will at least hopefully remember to take our dice. So we ask Toblin Stonehill what he thinks of the Sleeping Giant Inn. He doesn't really know much about it, of course, other than it's really only an inn in name. It's not actually serving anyone. It's not a business. It is essentially a front for the Redbrands, and it's not a particularly subtle one. And why would there be? Iarno, who's gone missing, is essentially the only constabulary this town has known. And, like I say, he disappeared into Trezendar Manor. So we don't know overly much, I'm afraid. We know that the inn was run by Grista, which has a female dwarf, which has had Shoria worried because, she might be the only woman in the group of, male bandits. So she's got a personal stake in this person making it out alive and well. But there's not really much else that he can tell me about he can tell about the party, about the inn itself. He does, however, tell us that there is a tunnel that his son and the Alderleaf boy Carp from Alderleaf Farm to the southeast of Phandalin have discovered a tunnel leading to the Trezendar Manor. So that's got us thinking now. We now know of a secret, or at least a rumoured secret entrance and exit. How well guarded it'll be, where it leads to in the manor, if it's the only entrance in there, I don't know. But he's given us the information all the time. He also tells us a bit about the town as well, saying that the town was previously occupied by dwarves and humans who coexisted here because of the mine. However, it was essentially wiped out because of an orc invasion. It's why it looks rather ramshackle at the moment. It's but again, because of the mine and the news of it coming about, it seems to be a bit of a I don't know what you call them. I don't know if the proper term is boomtown or not, because it's like it's those like those gold rush towns that you see in the Wild West, where you got these sort of frontier towns. And I think that's how this one's been treated. That essentially, because of this, the news of this mine, and the orcs being driven out, and the mine being reopened and whatnot, people are taking an interest and they want to be right near the money. So essentially, this is Phandalin 2. And I believe, if I'm correct about this, Dragon of Icespire Peak takes place in the future of this adventure. So I think that one is Phandalin 3. I have no idea though. We'll have to see how that goes. Yes, we also ask about the mine as well, if he knows anything about that. And I think Barthen had told him, or Toblin had been told by the Dwarven brothers, the Rockseeker brothers, that the mine was used to make spells and magic items, but he can't really tell us much more because magic isn't his forte. So, Shoria's now got a personal stake in going to the Sleeping Giant Inn rather than Trezendar Manor. It also makes sense as well that we sort of take out the eyes from this place. So if they want to sneak, if they want to watch us, if the Redbrands want to keep an eye on us, they've got to get way closer to us. So we decide that we're going to go to the inn, and we're going to start having a look around now. Now the DM brings up a separate map for this, and we can see like a patio, we can see a bit of a porch, we can see to the east, we can see some stables. And we get to see like the entire layout of this place. We know there's a back door, but we have to, well, add a character, we know there's a back door at least. So we were sort of thinking of maybe doing it like breaching tactics, like the SWAT or whatever. Like someone goes around, like two go around the back, two in the front, and do it that way. And sort of like sort of meet in the middle. But and make sure that all the exits are cut off as well. But we don't really need to sort of be that advanced with whatever. We weren't expecting heavy resistance anyway. It didn't seem like that big an inn to begin with. And when we actually got inside, there wasn't really going to be much room for many Redbrands anyway. So Sildar has joined us as well, so they can aid in the interrogation, and we could really do with their help, to be honest. Let's not lie to ourselves. So after much debate and deciding what we're going to do, Emil and Sildar take the door. They on each side. Emil swings his warhammer into it, and Emil boots the remaining door. They kick it down successfully, given that it wasn't locked at all. Eliza and myself are covering Shoria in a sort of, I guess, like we were running a train, so to speak. Oh dear, that sounds terrible. Yes, but we were we were in a sort of a line formation, and we were going to charge in as Sildar and Emil checked the sort of the sides of the room. And we found nobody inside. We were checking rooms, we only really found one person, but more on that later. Some supplies for Toblin, the innkeeper, found as well. And that was really, we didn't find a whole lot there. So now we've been looking around, we found no one else except for a little sound that comes from the northern end, the northeasternmost room of the inn in the northeastern corner, and we hear someone go achoo over there. So Emil has discovered that noise, and he goes into this room and he's looking around and he can't hear anyone, but it appears to be coming from under the bed. So Emil, our paladin, the Cragwalker dwarf, lifts up the bed, and I envision this in my head as like he sort of just puts his hand underneath, one hand underneath, and just raises it up and he tosses it to the other side of this like 40-foot room. The bed just explodes on the other side of the wall, on this other end of the room, and with a 22 strength, he got a natural 20 plus 2, and there's this bloke underneath who's like, please don't kill me, please don't kill me, please don't kill me, and his name is Carl, and Carl's going to be the closest thing we've got to a friend right now. No, that should have been the other way around. I apologise, but still, anyway, yes. So we're the closest thing to a friend Carl's got right now. So, either way, he's given us information. So, Shoria and Sildar drag him out from this room and in front of the fireplace, and they're going to have him sat on the floor and they're going to talk to him, and they're going to try and find out what's going on here, because she's got lots of questions and I've got all these notes. So the reason why Carl is part of the Redbrands is because he was unemployed and he was mocked by the townspeople. And he said he didn't have a choice, but Shoria reminds him there's always a choice. He's an informant, not for money, but more for respect than the money itself. And hey, if they pay, then he feels justified. But he also feels as though he's now a man of authority. He doesn't really care for Redbrand ideas. He's not motivated by any sort of rousing speeches by Glassstaff, or has any plans to sort of join them in any endeavours whatsoever. He really is just there to get some money, and because people might like him a bit more. He's very, very short-sighted, as you can tell by the fact that he's basically got Shoria, our warlock, and Sildar Hullwinter to his neck. While this is going on, I'm sort of covering the front door. Eliza and Emil are checking the rooms, making sure there's no one else in, making sure that no one's escaping. And Shoria is just questioning him with Sildar. So, the Redbrands have been asking a lot of the townspeople about the mine. They've been keeping an eye out for any sort of tough people that need to be aware of and silence or recruit. They mentioned the Black Spider as well, although we don't know much about them. We do know that Trezendar Manor is their HQ, not the Sleeping Giant Inn, and the Glassstaff is their leader. Oh yes, and the Black Spider as well had provided help. Creatures that look like goblins. Eliza had been asking, are they hobgoblins, orcs, bugbears, goblins, those sort of things, and he couldn't really tell us. He just said, look, they're just creatures that look like goblins. They don't really mix with us. I don't want to get involved with them. They don't want to get involved with me. That works well. And given that he's such a coward, I don't blame him. Oh yes, so yeah, I just wrote here as well. Toblin. For some reason, I thought it said Toblin would apprentice some of the things in here, but no. Appreciate some of the things in here. Yeah, so there's some in supplies here that Toblin would appreciate, and may need for some prisoners later on, as we'll get around to that. There's no female dwarf here, let alone one by the name of Grista, but I don't believe as well. That she's in the manor, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. He'd only joined... Oh, yes, but he'd only joined the Redbrands a week after they came to town. So he doesn't know all that much about how things were before they arrived and at the time they arrived. Townsfolk as well aren't allowed to interact with one another. Redbrand members... the members of the Redbrands recruited from Phandalin aren't allowed to talk to other, townsfolk of Phandalin, and I think as well Redbrands who recruit in the town can't talk to one another for fear of collusion. So this Glassstaff fellow is quite smart in a way, very paranoid, but also very, very clever. The boss also has a laboratory as well. And that's now starting to get, I think, everyone's attention. I think this is actually the thing that got everyone's attention. Like, okay, what's he doing here? There are cells that could be used to keep a dwarf, but the dwarf isn't there. And we ask about what other prisoners are there as well. Now, apparently, we find out that the Woodcarver's children, Theldendrar's wife and kids, are there. The theory was that they're going to be used to leverage the Townmaster, but we can't know for certain unless, of course, they're being used for this laboratory. Perhaps they're being experimented on. They're, perhaps Glassstaff is also a part-time vivisectionist. We don't know. And the family was taken 2 days ago. So, yeah, so we have to wonder now what's going on, because I think Theldendra's body was taken very early on or very recently, like a week. So, I don't know. We're going to have to find out. But surprisingly, we hadn't noticed anything about the... mind you, I don't think we were in Phandalin when 2 days ago. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll have to see if... Maybe we might ask about the family, if anyone had seen them. But, hey, we know where they are now, so... I don't think we need to worry too much about the NPCs. Like, one of the suggestions was we go to Elderly Farm to talk to the carps... The carp, but I really don't want to get a child involved in, this. I don't want them playing adventurers or whatever. So, and I certainly don't want to get into trouble with the parents either. So, yeah, I think we're safe to go to Trezendar Manor. If we see Carp, tell him on your bike. And the same goes as well for Toblin's boy. So, yeah, he knows only of 5 Redbrands plus... he knows of plus the Black Spider's reinforcements. So there's about 9 creatures that are awaiting in the manor. So we know at least that there's 5 Redbrands, and I think they said 3 or 4 goblinoid creatures as well. So that's gonna be interesting. Shoria rolls insight with advantage, and she's really her role play for this was phenomenal. And when she said she was going to make up for it for last week, for 2 weeks ago, because she wasn't feeling overly well, she's really made up for it this time. She's a very aggressive interrogator, I have to say. But she rolled 9 insight at the highest and 6 lowest. So we think it's telling the truth. He also mentions as well a password. And he says, you're not gonna give it to humans. There's kind of undead. And I immediately storm into this, and I was using the word appropriately there, because I just dragged my character across Roll20 and said, right, what's this about undead? Tell me now. I take out my warhammer and I put it under his chin and say, tell me, what's this about the undead? Apparently, there are coffins with skeletons in them. The password is ILLEFARN. This is by the way, this word is the only reason why I'm actually bothering to make this video, not lumping it into the next one, because we were sort of joking about ILLEFARN, and I said the ILLEFARN in the room. So, Dear me. So, yes. Yes. So, I asked, is this Glassstaff a necromancer? And he didn't seem to know. Glassstaff doesn't really cast many, if any, spells in front of the Redbrands. So, that leads me to wonder if these undead are older, as the rest of the party was telling me. So I won't know until I get there. And this is going to provide a bit of a dilemma for me. Am I going to allow the party to use the password, or am I going to, tear open the coffins and just smite the undead? That does, however, mean using more resources, so I don't know. I really, really don't know. I think as long as we deal with them, as long as the bodies are buried, as long as the undead are dealt with at some stage, preferably after we're fully rested, we should be alright. But we shall see. Yeah, so we also know as well that the base is underground. It is not the top of the manor. It is all in ruins, and the stones and slates from the manor have been taken to build other houses. Like, Phandalin is like the ruins of a castle built on the ruins of another castle, basically. Hence being Phandalin 2, according to Toblin. He tells us of the entrances. He tells us of the tunnels and the cellar, which is attached to the manor. So there's a tunnel in the forest, so we know that. And apparently there is they really don't want us to go through the forest entrance, and he himself doesn't really want to go through the forest entrance. Apparently there is a gigantic eye creature that speaks without using words, and I want to know what he means. I ask if we can identify this creature. I roll a natural 21 on Arcana from Garvel. I rolled natural 20, and I identify the creature as a Nothic. And apparently it's because it was spoken of in hushed terms. It was spoken about in hushed tones in the clergy, in the temple, that I may have come across it, or perhaps I've buried adventurers when I asked, please state how this adventurer, please state how the deceased had perished. Oh, it was a Nothic attack. I perhaps looked up from my quill and said, "You're going to have to explain that one to me." It's, maybe, yes, of course, yes, alright, okay. Third one this week. That Nothic to me is Tuesday. I better not say that, actually, in case the DM ups the difficulty on this thing. Maybe I don't know what a Nothic is, so... So apparently, I know that it is evil, and that I can speak back to it. So that's good. So yes, I asked them why they use 2 entrances. Why not just have the one? And they say that the Nothic is the greater danger, so in case they wanted a secret entrance to smuggle goods in, or be able to travel to the manor in the day without being seen, they can have the Nothic guard. Again, whatever it does. So apparently it's the greater danger. It's worse than the Redbrands and whatever goblinoids we may come across, and the skeletons apparently. So we're thinking about we need to detain this guy, but before we do, Shoria asks about the Order of Geezers. So, we ask, we ask in Sildar sort of, we ask about how, like, because Yarno disappeared here. If you could tell us about, if you've seen Yarno there. And we describe him, or rather we ask him to describe Glassstaff as well. Blackstaff is someone completely different. Glassstaff, and apparently he has black hair, he's not too tall, he's not well built, he's rather slender. And we use this information to identify Yarno as well. And Sildar, for some reason I put here, Sildar draws his staff. No, Sildar draws his sword. Upon hearing this thinking, he grabs this guy and he puts the sword against his neck and says, "You lie! Tell me, who is Glassstaff? And, where is Yarno?" Going on about this, and it appears to us that Glassstaff is Yarno. Dun dun dun, as everyone in the party had said. So, suspicions have been confirmed. Yano has deferred to the Redbrands. Although we don't know all the details, we don't know if he created them, if he was here to send to investigate them, if this was some sort of ploy. All we know is that he is now Glassstaff, or known as Glassstaff. Sildar is saying that 2 months ago we sent him, and 2 months this began. I think he was intended to be like a deputy here or something. Like he was here to bring order to Phandalin, but I don't know if the Redbrands were meant to be some sort of security force or perhaps mercenaries helping bring order to the town. We don't know what's going on. All we know is that he's now here, and things are looking worse now that we know he's the leader. So we've asked now, why does Yano have a lab and prisoners? Oh yeah, I asked that before. We don't know the answer to that. There's only 8 pages here, thank God. We also ask each other as well, and in and out of character, like, you know, how common is necromancy in Neverwinter? Like, would people know necromancers? Have there been many problems with it? And Neverwinter doesn't really see many necromancers. It is looked down upon, legal or otherwise. And as well, if a guard saw you raising the dead, they would attack you, because they might not know any better, and B, they don't really overly care for necromancers. Anyway, I can't say I blame them. So we now are starting to look at a place to detain Carl, because he's a Redbrand, he's still our prisoner. For all the information he's told us, we need somewhere to put him. So there's apparently a jailhouse in town, according to Sildar, and it's in the Townmaster's Hall. Emil's player says, give him a little poop bucket. Fantastic. So, yeah, I think I've just got about all the information there. Asks who... Oh yes, before we sort of knock Carl out and put him in a sack, and there's some fun for you. Emil asks who Thel was. And this is important to me as well, because this is sort of a personal vendetta of mine now, to get Thel Dendra's body and see it buried. And he explains to us, you know, oh, he's the woodcarver's wife, and said, he was. And now he's widowed his family. Yeah. I think Eliza twists the knife with another mark that I didn't write down. I don't know why it's Eliza's stuff that I hasn't written down. I apologise, because Eliza's a fantastic player. They're all fantastic players, I should say. So, yeah, so we're just thinking now about what to do. Oh yes, another thing as well. Thel was wearing green clothing. Hopefully, unlike the green clothing that I saw at the graveyard. But still. Right, so Emil's now hashing a plan. He's thinking that we can entreat the monster in the Nothic in the manor. We've also got 3 Redbrand cloaks we can use. He's also suggesting as well that Garvald and Emil standing on each other's shoulders to look human. It's not going to work, but still. But yes, it's a human-only organisation apparently. So Shoria, I think, is going to be the only person who really can blend in, and I don't know if that's something that Shoria really wants to do. So yes, in regards to treating, sorry, my gums are all over the place. If Shoria is saying about this Nothic that if Glassstaff can make a bargain, we can break a bargain. And that's got me thinking of David. I think it's David Dickinson on Bargain Hunt. So Cash in the Attic or some other sort of show.
Absolute showstopper.
Yeah, but Carl keeps telling us to avoid the tunnel. I think that's our DM just telling us we shouldn't fight the Nothic. Fair enough. You know, we are only level 2. I don't fancy fighting a creature that I'm not familiar with in any other fantasy universe. I suggest that we put the sack over this guy's head as we take it to the Town Master's Hall. And Emil's player says, "You in the sack, John." And he goes to proceed to make many a meme about the sack. But we do that anyway. So we knock him out because he really doesn't want to go in this sack. And Emil throws him over his shoulder, which I don't think I've ever seen a dwarf carry a human over their shoulder, but there's a first for everything. So we do that anyway. That's the plan. There's townspeople who seem to have forgiven us, and they're asking, you know, what's with this sack, you know? And Emil, quick on his feet, says, "Oh, we're going to make some scones. Yes, scones for everyone. That's what we do now. So we're done trying to help. We're just going to make some scones, and they're all for Garveld, who eats a lot. So apparently that's an in-joke now. So, or it has now. It is confirmed anyway. So I go along with it, and we carry on. And then Harbin is a bit more attentive this time. And he's shouting, "Is that a body? Is that a body that you're carrying into my town hall? You've already got the one on the bell tower." And Shoria says, "There's room for another on the bell tower if you so choose." And he constantly asks what's in the bag. "What's in that sack? I demand of the town master to know what's in that sack." And he's constantly sort of going through all these threats and whatnot, very idle as well, but he threatens to kick us out and turn the townsfolk on us as if that's going to do anything. And yeah, and we're going to put him in the cells, and the town master's got a fair point. Well, you know, if we do that, if we lock him up, they're going to get even more aggravated like they did with the bell. So he says, okay, well, so Sildar, after all this, basically says that, look, we'll tell the Lord's Alliance. I can tell them of my conduct, which they already know of, and I can tell them of yours. And we'll see how that goes. Now, this guy's really sort of standing by his convictions. He's determined to make sure that we don't pass any further. So anyway, we just carry on, barge past him, and we throw this guy in the cell. We take the sack back, the rope as well, I believe, and now we're basically asking, right, where's the key? So we return to Toblin, and yeah, this poor guy, he's getting a lot of flack here. The DM punches the bejesus out of him. Keeping in mind as well, he's a faithful, dutiful Christian. And as well, that Shoria kicks him in the nuts for racism against elves as well. So I didn't quite manage to catch what was going on there, because I was, at this point, I had to go to my phone. I was switching from my laptop to my phone with the power cut. So, yeah, I throw in some rations, which I believe I will need to subtract from my inventory as well, if I haven't already. Yeah, I throw in about 2 rations in there to keep them alive. Long enough, at least, for Toblin to sort of throw some food at them or whatever. I'm sure the supplies earlier will come in handy for that. Oh no, sorry, it says keep the guy tied up here. So, right, so Emil doesn't have his rope anymore. Oh, and after all this as well, we throw Harbin, the town master, into the same cell as him as he comes down with the key. We take the key off him and we boot him in there along with the Redbrand in there, and we sort of, you know, make up this horror story about, oh, this guy was really feral. You know, if you piss him off, he's gonna you know, claw his way out, and God knows what he'll do to you. So yeah. So yeah. So Sildar's getting really pent up about this. He really wants to sort of take on the Redbrands. He really wants to, you know, put an end to the Town Master. But Shoria reminds him to keep his energy for the manor, which he agreed to join us, if he so chooses. If he so chooses. So he does. So yeah. So we're now going back to the inn. Emil's having a kip, and this was a fantastic note to end on, especially when Emil's player had to go and see the new Bond film. So I hope his dad enjoyed it. I'll have to ask him on Saturday. When he prays to Moradin while I keep watch, and in the next session I believe I will be writing Garveld Grimhammer's Last Will and Testament and stashing it away in his pack. I might even have something as a bit of a sudden bit of mystery and intrigue to his character as well. I don't know. We'll have to see. But yes, I didn't manage to get all this conversation down. It's a shame because it was a fantastic one from Emil, who was then saying that he was talking to Moradin, and the conversation. Sorry, I got hair in my mouth. Asked, you know, if there's forgiveness, does that mean that we can still be sinful? And Moradin returns by saying, "Aye, and some are closer to it." He says, "Look," and Emil then says, "Look, I'll do. I might still do these sinful deeds, but I still want to defend the innocent." And Moradin returns by saying, "Aye, that's what it means to serve me." And Emil says, "Aye, I can live with that. I can live with that." Session end. And what a delightful session that it was. All my notes are out of order again. Yes, it was a fantastic session. We've learnt a lot, and I feel as though the next session may go a bit faster because we've uncovered a lot of information here, and we may not have to stop and ask NPCs a lot. Yeah, so that's the session. So thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the upcoming video on that. I apologise that this video has gone longer than it usually well, longer than I was expecting. It is only a very brief one. There wasn't really a lot of benefit for viewers as such, so I apologise for that, but it was always nice to have a recap for those who may want them, should they join the exploits of Group 89, and as well for the players there. So thank you ever so much for watching. Take care, may your dice remain clacky, and may you roll very high. That's that for now.